Yes, there were some captured craft from 1945 or 47, was it? In Roswell, New Mexico. And yeah, they were real. And yes, we really did get some technology from them. And yes, we really did put it to work.
Welcome back to UAP Troop 33, touching the third rail. Tonight, we're digging into a mystery. And it's kind of disturbing. So, just give you a fair warning before we dive into this. Every secret has a shelf life. For the past year, the independent research community has been tracking a pattern so precise and so alarming that it has reached the highest levels of congressional inquiry. It's the missing scientist anomaly, this group of scientists. But this isn't just a theory anymore, right? The ground has officially shifted. And it's not just scientists, it's whistleblowers, researchers. But on June 26, 2025, Melissa Casias, a 53-year-old employee at the hypersecure Los Alamos National Laboratory, she dropped her husband off at work that morning. And Los Alamos isn't a typical job site. It's a 40-square-mile sovereign campus that safeguards the nation's nuclear stockpile and the most classified aerospace assets. Melissa showed her security badge, entered the campus, and then unexpectedly drove back to her home, over an hour away. She told her daughter she was going to take the day off. She dropped off a sandwich to her at noon for her daughter at lunch. By all accounts, she seemed completely normal, quiet but normal. At 2:18 p.m., a family acquaintance spotted her walking eastbound along Highway 518 near Talpa, New Mexico. That's strange. It was the last time anyone saw her alive. When investigators entered her home, they found a chilling detail, right? She had left her purse, her ID, and her personal cell phones, 2 of them, all sitting on the kitchen counter. The phones hadn't just been turned off, they were completely wiped. We're talking about a factory reset, manually restored to factory settings. No digital footprint, no search history, a deliberate eraser. And they were done at 2 different times, one at like 8 in the morning and the other one at like 1:30. But for nearly a year, federal and state law enforcement combed the rugged New Mexico wilderness. Then on May 28, 2026, a hiker walking through the McGaffey Ridge area of Carson National Forest stumbled upon her remains. The state medical investigator confirmed the identity. It was Melissa Casias. And lying right beside her remains was a handgun. Case closed. A tragic isolated incident in the woods. Local authorities say the manner of death is still undetermined. But here's the detail that should make your spine tingle, because it made mine. Her family confirmed that her remains were recovered in an area that had already been exhaustively searched by teams a year ago. How do remains and a firearm suddenly materialize in a cleared grid? And why did a laboratory insider with clear visibility into highly sensitive logistics wipe her entire digital footprint, her digital life, before walking down a desert highway? Why? If Melissa's case stood alone, we could look away, right? But she is part of a chilling recursion. Just 4 days before Melissa vanished in New Mexico, another elite scientist vanished 700 miles away. Her name is Monica Jacinto Reza, and she was a brilliant materials engineer at Aerojet Rocketdyne. She literally invented and patented Mondaloy, which is like a highly advanced proprietary nickel-based superalloy engineered for classified military rocket propulsion. On June 22nd, 2025, Monica was hiking with a friend on a popular trail in Los Angeles National Forest. Strange thing is her friend turned around, they made eye contact, and Monica smiled and waved. The friend took 30 steps forward, turned around again, and Monica had vanished. A massive search with drones, dogs, helicopters turned up absolutely zero trace. But who funded and oversaw the advanced rocket programs that Monica Reza was engineering? And you got to enter retired Air Force Major General William Neil McCasland. And McCasland was the former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And this is the exact installation, legendary for housing retrieved aerospace anomalies, UAP, crashed UFOs. He was the man named in the famous John Podesta WikiLeaks drops as the deep insider advising public disclosure efforts, because as the leaked email stated, he was in charge of all the stuff, quote, unquote. On February 27, 2026, General McCasland walked out of his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Just like Melissa Casias, his phone, his prescription glasses, and his wearable tech, his watch, were left sitting inside his house. Missing from the home was his hiking boots, his wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver. Now, we don't know if he took those or not. He hasn't been seen since. And this isn't, it goes on and on. I could name Carl Grilmair. I could keep going. But these are three elite figures, these three, right? Deeply linked to advanced aerospace engineering, logistics, and exotic materials, all vanishing or dying under bizarre circumstances within months of each other, all leaving their phones behind, two with firearms. This isn't a random coincidence. This is an operational pattern. The truth is the most paradigm-shifting technologies on Earth. They aren't hiding in a government basement, right? They are locked behind a corporate veil of private aerospace giants. By handing exotic material research over to these private defense contractors under the guise of proprietary trade secrets, the military-industrial complex created a legal black hole, right? Because you can't FOIA these private corporations. It's a place where Freedom of Information Acts can't reach, where Congress is routinely denied access, and where technology capable of rewriting our understanding of physics is weaponized in total isolation. The people handling these materials, right? The engineers, the commanders, the gatekeepers, they're the ones who know exactly which private hangars are holding the pieces to the puzzle. And when the institutional seal begins to buckle, the system resets itself. But what exactly are these companies protecting? What did these researchers see? Later in this series, we're going to look directly at the testimonies of the ultimate defense insiders, right? And we're talking about men like legendary aerospace engineer Don Phillips. And he worked inside the classified loops of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also private defense contractors. We'll play the footage of his jaw-dropping claims regarding what we successfully reverse engineered from non-terrestrial assets and the extreme lengths to which corporate handlers will go to keep the world from finding out the truth. And the missing Los Alamos National Laboratory employees remains found in Carson National Forest. This local news covers the details, the exact location, and forensic circumstances regarding how Melissa Casias, how her remains and the handgun were discovered. We'll cover how all that happened, right? How it was recovered by this hiker in New Mexico, you know, exactly what happened, why she was walking on Route 518 that day, you know, the strange behavior. But here's the weird thing, right? So, like, if it, God forbid, if it was a self-unaliving, and I don't believe that's what it was, not for a second. I believe it's staged to look that way. So she's acting, she took her daughter lunch, she dropped her husband off at work, she called off work, right? Decided to take a day to relax or whatever, right? That's not the behavior that somebody that, you know, if somebody's having like a break, you know, a crisis, or, you know, and if anybody ever suffers from depression or mental health issues, please, you know, reach out to somebody, you know. But I question if that's what this was. I don't think that's what this was. And I think that this pattern, when you look at the larger pattern, that there is a there. And a lot of people try to say, oh, it's nothing, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of scientists in the world, just this, but it's the circumstances of how this is happening. You know, these people just walking out of their house and just poof, disappearing. Monica Reza, you know, the dogs couldn't even fucking pick up a scent, you know? And you look at these latest researchers, you know, the people that was really looking into UFOs, like Aidan Schafer, you know, you look at Amy Eskridge, you know, I could keep going on, Mark McCandlish, you know, David Wilcock, you know, even though they claim that they, you know, he was having mental health issues and they claim that he did this in front of the police. I don't know if that's the case. The day before, he said he was happy to be alive. I'm not buying it. Are you? Matthew Sullivan, he was one of the whistleblowers that David Grusch was going to bring forward to Congress. And then just before he's set to testify before Congress, they find him, I believe, in a hotel, and he overdosed on his own medication. Just come on, man. Okay. Mark McCandlish was set to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee about the flux liner. You know, his friend Brad Sorensen had told him about these craft that he witnessed in a hangar on a base, right? And he told Mark McCandlish, I guess he gave him like a sketch. So Mark McCandlish sketched it out, and Brad Sorensen described the exact, you know, what it looked like, the makeup, the sounds it was making. It was like buzzing, like, you know, and he drew up these blueprints, like exactly to how this thing was. And then there was a movie that came out, The Hunt for Zero Point. And before the movie came out, the guy who created the movie gets this aggressive form of cancer and dies within weeks before the movie's released. That's just strange, man. And I'm not sure if the movie was called The Hunt for Zero Point or Zero Point, but it was something like that. It was around 2012. And I believe his last name was James. And he was the filmmaker. And then it came out that he had high levels of these heavy metals in his body, like uranium and some other thing, thorium or something. And that's what caused this aggressive form of cancer. And then Mark McCandlish is set to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I believe it was like 2021. And then they claimed that he offed himself. Amy Eskridge claimed that she had cracked anti-gravity. She was trying to release this to the world to get us, you know, off of the fossil fuels, petrodollar utilities. This would make everybody kind of on an equal playing field, because our entire economy is based on scarcity. And I'm rambling here, but these are the things that we're talking about in this series, Touching the Third Rail. And some of it is heavy, some of it is a little disturbing. So I'm going to give you fair warning. But stick around, watch this clip. This is Don Phillips.
Safely say that, yes, there were some captured craft from 1945, or 47 was it? In Roswell, New Mexico. And yeah, they were real. And yes, we really did get some technology from them. And yes, we really did put it to work. And we can thank people in the United States Army to have the foresight to put these into industry for the benefit of the people of the world. I know this to be a fact. We put it to use, but it took us a long time to figure out what it was, and then figure out how we can use it, and then what to use it for. And are those products useful for humanity? It wasn't until actually later on in the 80s and 90s, this recent, when I founded a company called Light City Technologies. It was a technology development corporation of a secret nature. We work with data signals, avionics, computer. And as I had talked with you before, we knew each other from certain agencies of the military in contract with the CIA or other branches of usually called unseen industry. I would say that's a good term. We can term it black, deep black, or hidden. And okay, that might be okay for the popular, but having participated in it, and we still do once in a while on contract, because we might get something useful that can save lives and save money as well, for everybody, not just this country. The question that there is advanced, some people call them advanced races. Well, the knowledge that I have of these technologies coming with the aircraft or the craft that were captured here, I didn't see the craft, nor did I see the bodies, but I certainly know some of the people that did. And of course, they're passed on now from their earthly bodies, but there was no question that there are people or beings from outside the planet that have lived here for a long time. And it isn't just something new that's been happening in the last couple of years. There's been NATO research conducted, joint research, joint meaning many different countries, and this it's been documented as to who those races are and their population at that time. And this was back in the early 60s. This is when what precipitated the need for our aircraft was the result of these reports coming out from NATO. These reports were started in the late 50s. They were finished in the early 60s and disseminated to the appropriate leaders of various countries, I think, but they were kept under lock and key, if you will. And the prominence or the greater exposure or greater occurrence of unidentified flying objects became, the objects became more known. And they actually stopped. They would communicate. We have records from 1954 that were meetings between our own leaders of this country, as well as a meeting with the leaders of our country here in California. And as I understand it from the written documentation, that we were asked if we would allow them to be here and do research. And the statement I have read was that, well, how can we stop you? You're so advanced. And I will say by this camera and this sound that it was President Eisenhower that had this meeting. And it was on film, sort of like what we're doing now. Bringing it up to date, their NATO report gave that there were 12 races, and that the final summary, they had to have contacts to go to these races in order to understand who they are, what they're doing, and what they could do. And they didn't get into the contacts, but it certainly did verify that they haven't been here for just a few years, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And this was written in the text. Getting back to the technology that we might have used, the chips, the lasers, the night vision, the what we call bulletproof vests, and a few others. These were all used, these were all developed. The chips, what they call the central processing units, were developed in great strides. Now, why did that happen? Why you put a few things together and do a bit of research, you think, wow, boy, we did benefit. And in several talks, these people, it wasn't because they were necessarily sharing the technology, it's because we picked it up and put it into what's called the file cabinet. And we ascertain, like, oh, are these people safe? Are these people that have come in out from outside, are they hostile? Well, if they were hostile, my own knowledge is, and feeling, I don't know about all of them, is that we could have been, with their weaponry, as it might be used, it could have destroyed us a long time ago.
Because we're going to get into this, the inherited empire, right? it's like almost a breakaway civilization shadow government that are siphoning off massive amounts of taxpayer dollars into these black projects and developing these technologies that we never get to see. So to understand how we arrived at this modern ledger of these missing minds, these brilliant people, we have to look at the legal architecture that protects this shadow empire, because the ultimate cover-up isn't just a classification stamp. It's an intellectual property trap, right? Because like when intelligence powerhouse David Grusch, who used to carry the presidential briefing, when he sat down with investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, he dropped a bombshell that went completely over the heads of the mainstream media. Grusch didn't just claim the United States has non-human spacecraft. He basically exposed where they're being kept. He revealed that this secret faction of the government has been systematically handling recovered assets directly to private aerospace giants without any congressional oversight, siphoning off mass amounts of taxpayer dollars to research this, to try to reverse engineer it. And he testified before Congress about this, and he was willing to give this information up in a skiff. And it's just surprising that the mainstream media largely didn't even pay attention to it. And it's, I don't get it. But why do these private corporations? Why? Because of a calculated legal loophole. Because if a piece of exotic hardware sits in a Pentagon warehouse, it is technically subject to congressional oversight, Inspector General audits, and in the public Freedom of Information Act or FOIA requests. But the moment that asset is transferred into a private lab of a defense contractor like Skunk Works or Boeing's, Phantom Works, it gets reclassified as a proprietary trade secret. It suddenly becomes legally invisible. If Congress is denied access, the public is locked out, and billions of your tax dollars vanish into deep black budget lines, funding advanced research into anti-gravity, exotic propulsion, plasma physics, engineering, and anomalous metamaterials, technology that could completely rewrite global energy and transport, utilities. And while you are left footing the bill for an empire you aren't allowed to see, this is illegal, highly illegal. But this corporate handoff isn't a modern invention. It has been the blueprint from the very beginning.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No.
Here tonight, he wants the NHI technology to be shared so the rest of the world can benefit from it.
And I use nuclear weapons or nuclear physics as an example. It's an acknowledged program. We have nuclear weapons. You don't get to know the designs, but nuclear physics holistically is unclassified. Academia studies it. And why would you suppress basic astrophysics, astrobiology, other hard and soft sciences broadly?
He wants the NHI technology to be shared so the rest of the world can benefit from it.
To see the origin of his playbook, we have to go back to 1961, inside the deep corridors of the Pentagon. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Corso, Philip J. Corso. He was a lieutenant. He was chief of the Foreign Technology and Army R&D. Colonel Philip J. Corso was a highly decorated intelligence officer who served on President Eisenhower's National Security Council. Yeah. In 1961, he became the chief of the Foreign Technology Desk for Army Research and Development. When he took the job, he inherited a locked filing cabinet containing artifacts retrieved from the legendary 1947 Roswell crash. You know what? His orders from General Arthur Trudeau were simple. They were direct. Seed this technology into American industry, hide its origin, and ensure we weaponize it before our adversaries do. Corso laid out the entire operation in his explosive memoir, The Day After Roswell. He didn't take the debris to government labs. He covertly walked these non-terrestrial assets into the private research division of corporate defense giants. These companies like Bell Labs, Dow Chemical, and top-tier aerospace firms. He presented the artifacts as captured Soviet technology to maintain absolute deniability. This book was published 1 year before he died. And you see this repeatedly with these old men. They reveal these secrets. I don't know too many people who that would be their last, legacy.
So it had to be. We didn't cover because we gave it to industry with the provisions, and I'll repeat this. The provisions were to come back to us with what you proved, competitive edge of the Army, give it to the people and to the world if necessary, and take the patents. We encourage you to take the patents. And I have this in paper written by generals in 1963. Yeah. Well, the book is really my experiences as I lived them in research and development of the Army under General Trudeau, Arthur Trudeau. And he drew me back in and put me in charge of that and established a Foreign Technology Division for me. And these were the artifacts on a crashed flying saucer, which we used the word applied engineering. Dr. Teller was still alive, knows he helped him. And we fed these things. He gave me the job of finding industry or scientists that were close to these items and feed us to them in normal R&D projects.
And you're saying these items came from somewhere else?
They came from a flying saucer.
How do you know that?
Because they were marked in the files as coming from New Mexico.
Roswell?
Yeah, Roswell. Well, I think some came, there might be another crash, but these came from New Mexico and Roswell especially. And General Trudeau gave me the job of working out a program, put these things out, feed them to industry, but there was provisions feeding it. They could have the patents, but they had to feed them out back to us as a competitive edge of the Army and to the American people and the world if necessary. Like the Japanese interviewed me, and I told them we put the integrated circuit out, and we also gave it to you. And I told the Japanese this right at the interview at Roswell.
Give me a little laundry list of the things that, the technologies that are at least partially responsible from the Roswell.
Well, there's the number one was the integrated circuit. Number two in importance was laser, because I had some laser instruments also. Then fiber optics came out of this. The imaging devices or night viewing devices came from this. Some of the work we did on electromagnetism and the ICBMs and came from this.
Imagine the scientists and technicians and the companies that worked on this stuff are not real happy with your version of history.
No, but the result of that corporate seeding program, right, back to this, the foundational pillars of the modern world, Corso revealed that the exotic materials harvested from that crash site led directly to the accelerated development of the integrated circuit chip, fiber optics, and early computing architectures, lasers and night vision capabilities, and high tensile nanotechnology, Kevlar shielding, and the consumer electronics we use every single day. And these were just filtered out to the public, right? Watered down crumbs of a feast that happened in secret aerospace labs decades ago. Now, I named a lot of names, and I briefly told you who these people were, what they were researching, and some of them I told you how they died, some of them I didn't. But I want you to know that all these things I'm telling you are absolutely 100% true. These people were researching these cutting edge technologies. Some of them were just researchers into the UFO subject, and they all ended up dying in this way. Then I showed you the interview with Don Phillips, David Grusch, to reveal that there is these dark corporate entities that are siphoning off taxpayer dollars into these black budget programs to try to reverse engineer this technology, but they're only seeding some of that technology into the public, as Philip J. Corso has shown us. But the other technology they're keeping from us, the technology that could free us, this economy that's based on scarcity. And it could level the playing field, and it could change the world. And David Grusch believes that they're hiding this, that they have this, other people do as well. People who are high up in government that know. David Grusch used to carry the presidential briefing to the President of the United States. He's a GS-15, which is equal to a full bird colonel. So he's not just some conspiracy theorist. So where does the paper trail actually end? Right? When you connect the dots, right? When you connect the modern erasures of laboratory gatekeepers like Melissa Casias and the multi-decade pipeline of crash retrievals that were exposed by Colonel Philip Corso, and you anchor it to the black budget corporate empires uncovered by David Grusch, a terrifying realization takes shape, and it's this term deep state. And the term deep state is no longer big enough to describe the architecture of what we are actually looking at, right? We aren't just dealing with a hidden layer of politicians or rogue intelligence officers. We are looking at the genesis of what I would call like a breakaway corporate civilization. This untouchable empire built entirely on your dime, on your taxpayer money, and is fueled by a multi-trillion-dollar vacuum of unregulated wealth. And it's weaponizing a level of physics that you aren't allowed to know exists. And by hiding behind the absolute privacy shields of private defense contractors, this shadow network didn't just protect the secret, they built a parallel reality. They have monopolized the future of energy, travel, and human evolution, silently separating themselves from the rest of the civilian population. And as the modern legislative walls begin to close, and they begin to close in on their decades-old monopoly, the system of executing is hard, ruthless, and it's a reset on the very minds who helped build it. The question is no longer if a cover-up exists. The question is how much of our own future has already been stolen.